Tom Richardson for NewEnglandBoating.com, and today we're going to talk a little bit about wire line trolling for striped bass. Right now we're fishing the rips just south of the tip of Monomoy Island. The water depth is on the shoals here 15 to 20 feet, drops off to 30 to 35 feet, and the striped bass are hanging right up on that shallow tip of the shoal area. We're going to talk to Christian Davenport about how he goes about targeting striped bass on wire line in these waters. He's going to give us a few more details. So Christian, let's talk a little bit about the outfits you use for wire line trolling. What do you got there? You got a Penn 113H, right?
Yep, that's right.
That's a Senator, and that's kind of the workhorse reel for wire lining. And how about the rod?
It's a Goose Hummet. It's a 6-foot boat rod, probably 50 to 60 pound rod.
Yep, and it's got a roller tip top. That's real important, right?
Definitely with the wire. You got to have the roller tip to feed that wire through there.
And when so it also won't kink as well.
Exactly, when you're jigging.
Gotcha. And so what pound test wire line are you using there? What do you spool it up with?
It's about 60 pound wire.
And you've got DACRON backing underneath that.
Yep, we put out about 100 yards or so of wire, and then we got the DACRON backing on there.
Okay, and what do you have for is that a monofilament or a fluorocarbon leader?
It's fluorocarbon. We use fluorocarbon, about 60 pound test, and we crimp all the connections as opposed to tie them.
I see, right, you got them crimped, and then you've got
paperclip style snap swivel.
Gotcha.
So it's easy on and off. These things take a beating, so you got to change them out fairly frequently.
Absolutely. Now, how do you connect the monofilament, the fluorocarbon leader to the wire?
We use a swivel. Seems to hold up a little better, and we tie off the wire as well as we crimp the mono that way, or the fluorocarbon that way. It flows through the guides real well.
And how long a leader are you using?
We usually use about 8 feet or so. Is usually the standard. That way, when you get the fish up to the boat, you can grab the leader as opposed to grabbing the wire. It's a little easier on your hands.
Right.
You know?
And you're using a real small, one of those real small Spro swivels, probably.
Exactly. That way it feeds through there because the rod's only 6 feet long.
That's right. So if it comes to landing the fish, bringing it in close, you got to have that swivel so you can reel it inside.
Right in there. Exactly.
Perfect. Now let's talk about the lure you're using. It's a standard parachute jig, right?
It is. It's a 6-ounce parachute jig because the depth we're fishing at, we need that little extra weight to get down to the bottom. Because it's nice sandy bottom. We drag them right down on the sand. We let them bury right in there and pop them right off the bottom.
Yeah, because that's where the bass are holding. You got to get it right down on the bottom. When fishing wire line, you can use a variety of jigs. You got red ones, you got purple and black ones, you got red and white ones. Don't be afraid to mix it up. In fact, if you have multiple anglers, have one person use one color jig, another one use the other until you find out what the fish are feeding on.
You can't resist the parachute jig.
That's right. It's standard, but it still produces an oldie but a goodie.
Exactly. We throw a pork rind on there for a little extra action.
Yep. That's like an Uncle Josh pork rind. You know, the one you see all the time.
They work really well.
So it's imitating like a squid.
Exactly. Coming right off the bottom, pound right through there.
And the key is you want to snap that rod as you're trolling along to make it kind of pulsate off the bottom.
Exactly.
All right, with these parachute jigs, you can give them action by pumping the rod upwards, but you can also, some guys like to do it this way. Hold it like a broom almost, and snap the wire like that. It's called snapping wire, if you want to look like a pro.
Wait until the jig's right on the bottom, loads up on the rod, and then just give it a nice pop off the bottom.
And it's like kicking up little puffs of sand and stuff, and that's what the stripers are looking for.
They can't resist it.
Yeah. So the key is to also troll very slowly, obviously.
Exactly. You got to keep your speed slow to keep that jig right on the bottom, because if the jig's not on the bottom, it's not doing what it's supposed to.
Because those bass are lazy, right?
Exactly.
A lot of times what happens is the stripers will inhale that jig as it's being swept back. So you want to be ready to set the hook if you feel a tap that could be a fish sucking in that jig. See how I'm snapping it up and I'm slowly letting it down, always maintaining contact. I don't want to do this, throw slack in that line. You'll never feel the bite. Just snap it out, slowly lower it back. Snap it up, slowly lower it back. So that, try to imagine the jig jetting off the bottom and then slowly settling back down. But those stripers will hit that jig as it's settling back down a lot of times.
Keep it right on the bottom, which is a trick, so makes the job tough on the captain.
Yeah, but you know what? That's what you got to do, right?
Exactly, right?
You want to catch the lunkers.
Yep.
Right now what the skipper's doing, he's slowly taking us in and out of gear. It's a large boat, so he's got to keep us from going too fast. We're up current of the rip. You want to be up current, right?
That's correct. Your jig goes back behind you into the current, and you pull it right over that drop.
That's right. So yeah, because the bass are hanging right on that high point, right, or right just behind it probably.
Pop it right off the bottom, right over the top, and then they come right up and grab it.
So we're basically kind of crabbing our way along parallel to the rip, just ahead of it, and you got to try to imagine that lure, get it, the line swinging back in sort of an arc, and the jig hopping over that sandy top. One good thing about wire line trolling is that it allows you to work a very long section of the rip as opposed to just simply drifting through one section of the rip with bait. The fish could be anywhere along this shoal, and by trolling, you get to prospect the entire section until you find a pocket of fish. And once you do, mark that spot, because it's likely that the school of bass is going to hang out in that spot for a while, although they will move up and down the rip according to the change in current. Real important when you're letting out the line to keep your thumb on that, right? Because otherwise it's bird's nest and you get all kinds of problems.
The wire's tough. This stuff's pretty rigid, so you got to keep tension on it the whole time you're letting it out. If not, it'll make a bird's nest, and you get a kink in that wire, and it won't feed out the next time. It makes a weak spot.
And it makes a weak spot as
that
well.
One time you get that nice 40-pounder on there, you don't want that kink breaking.
Gotcha. So you're keeping a nice thumb pressure as it's letting out real slow.
Let it out nice and slow. It also helps it to get right down to the bottom. So if you start down on the bottom, it helps to keep it there,
Yep. Now the great thing about fishing these sand shoals is that you don't have to worry about getting hung up on rocks and stuff. So you can actually let that thing out until you feel it start bumping bottom, and then you know you're on the bottom.
That's the bottom. Then we flip at a free spool so we can start jigging.
Yep. So it's probably if you're new to wire line, it's probably a good idea to cut your teeth on a sandy bottom, whereas as opposed to a rocky bottom. So you can just let it out, get the feel of it, bumping bottom. When you're on a popular rip like the ones out here off Monomoy, be respectful of other people who are already on the rip ahead of you. Sometimes you'll have guys that are drifting live eels or chunk baits through the rip. Keep your distance from those guys. They were here first. Give them a wide berth. You can see that Christian has let the wire line all the way out past the rod tip, and he's jigging on the DACRON backing. That's real important because you don't want to jig on the actual stainless wire itself. You're going to cause a weak spot to form. So always let it out until it's past that, so you can actually jig on the DACRON. You definitely want moving water, and sometimes the fish feed best when it's moving the fastest. But that also makes it harder to hold bottom, get your jig on the bottom. So you might have to switch it up, go to a heavier 4-ounce or even a 6-ounce jig, depending on the water depth and the current speed. You can see as the current is starting to pick up, the rip line is really making up. You can see the distinct boundary where you got flat water on one side and it hits that choppy water that's right over the shoal or just behind the shoal. You can imagine the current sweeping up that slope of the shoal, sweeping bait fish with it. Striped bass are waiting right on top of the shoal or right behind it, waiting to pick off an easy meal. So to work along the rip line, we're slowly just kind of crabbing our way slowly along the length of the rip until we hopefully find a pocket of fish. Sometimes in a rip situation, you're gonna find different bait fish in a rip. The fish are gonna be feeding on a variety of baits, anywhere from squid to herring to mackerel, and sometimes sand eels. And if sand eels are in the area and you notice a lot of sand eels, or the fish you caught happens to cough up some sand eels, you might want to switch to a Ronzi or a similar soft-bodied bait fish like this. When you're reeling in the wire line, use your thumb to guide the wire onto the spool in a nice, even fashion, so you're not creating a big ball of line in the center of the reel spool. This will prevent the wire from forming kinks and causing problems later on. You can see I'm just using my thumb to guide it back and forth so it winds on nice and evenly. Nice and easy. Don't let any slack get in the line. That's when they throw the hook. That's good. Now keep it coming. Keep it coming.
What do I do?
Don't lose this fish. Today we're coming to you from the Bass River. Keep reeling.
Down or up?
No, you pump them in.